UFC Vegas 96 was a pretty straightforward card. Most of the things that we thought would happen did happen. Some of the things that we thought could happen also did happen. And ultimately, we ended up with a very, very good main event that will adjust the rankings in the UFC's middleweight division. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and I'm going to recap and react to the entire UFC Vegas 96 fight card. Before we talk about the fights, let's talk about the bets. We had another phenomenal night. I put up 43% return on the investment. I only had 3.5 units out the door. One of those bets was fully refunded with that James Llontop win inside the distance decision, no action bet. And ultimately, I had a full unit of net profit, a 43% return on investment. 2.5 units officially out the door, 3.5 and a little bit more on its way back. If you're a premium member, you're welcome. Jacob crushed as well. Overall premium membership, it is insane. It is insane what we are doing week in and week out. I sit here in this chair in the middle of the night after watching these fights and I recap our bets, and it's nuts what we were able to do. Jacob put up a 31% return on investment. I put up a 43% return on investment. I missed one bet on Dennis Buzukja. We'll talk about that fight. Jacob missed 2 flyer bets. That's all Jacob missed was 2 flyer bets and then the James Llontop bet. Ultimately, the bets have been phenomenal. If you're not a premium member, it's ridiculous. I don't know what else we need to do, frankly. You have every single tool you could ever want or need. You have fight picks. You have an artificial intelligence. You get bets that have been dominating week in and week out. You can unlock premium membership for UFC Vegas 97. The picks and bets are already up. You can unlock it for Noche UFC, for UFC 306. Everything is included for only $10 an entire month. Here's a closer look at that safety parlay because it did hit tonight. Tonight's safety parlay did hit. I will be honest. When we get to the Caio Borralho fight, I'll talk about it. He was in it, and I was biting my nails, but ultimately, Caio Borralho got it done. That safety parlay hit 9-3 in the last 12 events, 13-4 in pay-per-views. It's insane what the safety parlay is able to do. The safest bet in this most volatile sport to bet on. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. You're going to get more than just bets. You'll get tools and picks and all sorts of other stuff as well, including the best DraftKings ownership projections on the planet. These are the ownership projections from tonight, from UFC Vegas 96. You'll see our margin of error was 2.39%, and everybody else is clean into the 4s, almost into the 5s. And that's us compared to these Scotastics, the Roto Grinders, the giant DFS companies. Let's go ahead and talk about these fights. Well, straight up, we opened up the card with Wang taking on Victoria Leonardo. Wang, full-blown hype train. Full-blown hype train. She beat Valentina Shevchenko in kickboxing. Let's turn her into something. Let's give her somebody that she can beat. And she did. She smoked Victoria Leonardo. I mean, the power that she has is insane. Victoria Leonardo came out fast. She just moved forward. I'm going to get in this girl's face. I'm going to show her I'm not afraid. And that did not pay off. That was not a good game plan. Because Wang was too good of a striker and hit like a truck. I mean, it was just bang, bang, and just dropped Victoria, got it done. And Cong looked good. Like, she looked technically sound. The pressure didn't worry her. The moment didn't stress her out. She didn't seem affected by the fact that she was fighting in the UFC. She had face paint on for the weigh-in. She was ready to go. I am looking forward to her next fight. I hope they don't rush her. Like, don't just throw wild wrestlers at her. Let's build her up a little bit. But, I mean, Wang looked absolutely fantastic, and I'm here for it, and I am ready to see her next fight. Then we had what I thought was a bad decision. I can already tell a lot of people aren't going to agree with me because Jacob sent me a screenshot of some other people's bets out there in this space, and it was an obliteration. An obliteration. They were losing bets left and right, and they happened to get a win with Jacqueline Cavalcanti there. And I said, honestly, I think that's a bad bet too. I think Josiane Nunes won that fight. And he told me, you're an idiot. Jacqueline controlled that entire fight. Listen, I thought Jacqueline lost that fight. The reality is, Josiane Nunes was marching forward. It was literally my exact breakdown. She's afraid of nothing. She will move forward at any pace, any speed. She's a bowling ball. You can't mess her up. Jacqueline was clearly the better, more skilled striker. But she doesn't fight as well backing up as she does moving forward. Josiane Nunes moved forward. Josiane Nunes stayed in her face. And obviously she ate some shots along the way. But they both ate a ton of shots. And Josiane was the one moving forward. bombing, trying to finish. I thought Josiane Nunes won that fight. It was a split decision, so the judges were pretty close too. But I thought Josiane did enough to win the fight. I thought the forward pressure was enough. And maybe I give too much credence to forward pressure. And obviously this picture is a bit deceiving because the small portion of Jacqueline's face you can see is perfectly clear, and Josiane's a little busted up. Josiane busted up Jacqueline too. Like, both their faces were busted up, and then you have Josiane moving forward nonstop. So I thought Josiane Nunes won this fight, but this video, we did 450,000 views last month. Monster numbers. And this video specifically gets the most, I don't know how to word it. They're not nasty, but the most against the grain comments. I'll do my full fight picks. I'll break down the full card. And most people are like, I agree or I disagree, and here's why. This video, I'll say, I think this person won a decision, and it's like, you fat idiot. What were you watching, you ragu blood vein having moron? Those are the comments on this video. So I know what's coming when I say I think Josiane Nunes won this fight. I know what's coming, and I'm prepared for it. And this one isn't going to help either, because I think this was also a bad decision, but not in the way that you think. I'm not about to sit here and make the case that James Llontop won. I'm about to make the case that this should not have been a split decision. I thought Viacheslav, won the fight. 29-28, I thought he won the fight. A split decision seemed a little odd to me because it's almost the exact same that I just broke down for Josiane Nunes. Right? I just said Josiane Nunes moved forward, that forward pressure. There was damage on both sides. It just looked whatever. Jacqueline was landing a little better. She's a little more accurate, but Josiane just nonstop forward pressure. It was basically the same thing. James Llontop was moving forward. James Llontop was the one sort of controlling the forward momentum. But Viacheslav was just lighting him up, hitting him hard as hell, making him pay on the way in. Viacheslav was a much better striker. It wasn't even close. James was a full step behind in almost every single exchange. And yes, he was moving forward. But there are extremes to moving forward. When Josiane was moving forward, she had good amount of success. And Jacqueline was backing up and getting pushed against the cage and seemed to struggle. Where Viacheslav, yes, he got touched up. And yes, I don't think Viacheslav is as good as a lot of people think he is. And he never should have been as big of a favorite as he was. But I thought this was a pretty straightforward win for Viacheslav. He was the much better striker. And James is just insanely tough. So I'm curious what you guys think. I have a feeling that I'll be on the wrong side of opinion history there. But what I am curious is what happens next. Because James Llontop is struggling to get these wins in the UFC. Struggling. But I don't think he should be cut. He's had a couple of okay performances. Certainly in this fight. He was a big underdog, and he showed up. He moved forward. He was afraid of nothing. And I would say he puts on a show because he doesn't back up. He's not diving at legs. He's not sniffing crotches. He's trying to win fights. He is moving forward, and he is staying tough. So James Llontop should keep his job. Viacheslav Borshchev is honestly on thin ice. This is somebody he should have smoked. Somebody that he was just a way better striker than. A perfect match for him. Somebody who's not going to be looking to wrestle. And you went to a split. I don't agree with the split, but you went to a split. Viacheslav's on thin ice here, but, both of these guys, I think, did a good job. They did what they were supposed to do. They tried to win this fight. They made it a fun fight to watch, and ultimately Viacheslav got the decision. And now let's talk about two things. First, we're going to talk about Jose Medina. This guy is tough as shit. I mean, the beating that Jose Medina took was wildly impressive. This guy took an absolute beating. Zach Reese lit this dude up, lit up the body, lit up the head, punches, kicks, just beat this dude's ass. And this guy would fall over 90% knocked out. All of a sudden, he's not knocked out. He's still there. He's still hanging out. And I know this fight burned a lot of people. Obviously, the giant favorite won the fight, but a lot of people thought that there was going to be a finish here, an early finish at that. So they flew past the round line. Zach Reese did not win inside the distance, and it burned a ton of people. Ultimately, I think Zach Reese looked good in this fight. His striking looked very good. I mean, he was teeing off on Jose Medina. Zach Reese absolutely has power. This was just Jose Medina being built out of bricks. He's built out of bricks. You punch a brick, and it might move, but it's not going to fall over. And then Zach, when he couldn't knock out Jose Medina, would go to some wrestling. He had a couple of slick takedowns. worked him to the ground. My one and only complaint, and I brought this up in the breakdown, I said this is a very straightforward card. I don't think I was surprised by any. Actually, there was one surprise on this card. The next fight. But outside of that, I wasn't surprised by anything, including when Reese was on his back, Zach Reese was on his back, and he's just throwing up triangles, taking his time on his back, playing the jiu-jitsu nerd game. The problem was, at that point in time, Jose Medina had already been knocked out 4, 5, 6, 7 times already, and he didn't have his normal oomph. He wasn't raining down elbows. He was just like, thank God I'm getting a break and I'm not getting lit up on my feet right now. So ultimately, Jose Medina showed us how wildly tough he is, and Zach Reese had the opportunity to fight a full 15 minutes, which he doesn't get to do very often, to fight a full 15 minutes, which I actually don't know if he ever has. And we got to see striking, we got to see grappling, we got to see wrestling. We got to see every single skill that Zach Reese has, and honestly, they looked pretty good. I am curious what his next matchup is going to be, but Zach Reese is good, and, getting power bombed and his head bounced off the mat by Cody Brunich might have been the best thing that happened to his career, frankly. I'm looking forward to see what they do for him next. This is the one thing that, truly surprised me. Because I did not think Francis Marshall was this good, right? I thought Francis Marshall was kind of a pretty boy hype train. Literally. And honestly, I think what we saw from Francis Marshall tonight, which was very good, is really just reinforcing how good, how dangerous, how screwed Isaac Dulgarian is. Because Isaac Dulgarian got absolutely effed in his last fight. But in the fight before that, he blew through Francis Marshall like Francis Marshall has never fought before. Blew through the dude. Blew through him. And I had a bet here on Dennis Buzukja. I was like, Dennis Buzukja is good. He's better than people give him credit for. People think he sucks because he's got 2 losses in the UFC, but those are good losses. Dennis Buzukja's got good wrestling. He's got good striking. And his wrestling did look pretty good. Instantly, Francis Marshall's like, boom, takedown. But Dennis defended that takedown, stayed up, worked the hands, worked his hips, looked pretty good. Second round, we get to see how good Francis Marshall's hands are. And he drops Dennis Buzukja. And I'm like, they're going to stop this fight. That bet's gone. And Dennis Buzukja stays tough, rallies, doesn't quit on himself, continues to come forward. This is another tricky fight for Dennis Buzukja because now he is 1-3 in the UFC. 1-3 in the UFC. And yes, he lost this fight, but did he look that bad? The circumstances aren't good. It was a short notice fight that he should have won. He was the underdog, but he should have won. You're the guy that had the full camp. You should have won. But he was against a tough, gritty, come-forward guy that he wasn't prepared for, that stayed in his face and moved forward. And now let's give credit to Francis Marshall. Francis Marshall looked fantastic. He looked fantastic. For a dude stepping up on short notice, he looked fantastic. His hands look better than they've looked. His takedowns looked pretty good. And obviously he wasn't lighting up Dennis Buzukja with takedowns, but Dennis Buzukja is a guy who has wrestled in real life long before he fought. So Francis Marshall looked good, and hopefully they keep Dennis Buzukja. I don't want Dennis Buzukja to get cut. Keep him around. Let's give him another fight. Let's see where he actually is. Let's give him a normal. His first 2 fights in the UFC, the first one was a very short notice step up against a giraffe. The second one was against one of the hardest hitters in the division. Third fight, normal camp, no weird circumstances, beats that fool, knocks him out. Fourth fight, short notice step up against a very, very good opponent. So let's get him one more fight with normal circumstances, and let's see how good Dennis Buzukja is. And frankly, Francis Marshall winning was good for Isaac Dulgarian because now Isaac is very, very good the way he beat the shit out of Francis. And Francis gets to get back in the win column after a 2-fight skid. Overall, I think this was good. I do not think this was another. We've had a bunch of split decisions on this card that I don't necessarily agree with. I don't think this was a split decision. I bet on Dennis Buzukja. And I don't think Dennis Buzukja won this fight. How did he win 2 rounds? In the first round, he was basically held against the cage and held down the whole time. In the second round, he was almost knocked out. How the hell did he win 2 rounds? So this is the 3rd fight in a row, or 3 of the first 4 fights. I don't agree with the decisions, or at least I don't agree with how extreme they were. We didn't need a decision here. This was the most typical Jared Meerschaert fight you're ever going to see. He sucks at striking, gets almost knocked out, somehow doesn't get knocked out, ends up on the ground, wins by submission. That's a Jared Meerschaert fight. You can watch any of his fights. That's a Jared Meerschaert fight. That's it. That's a Gerald Meerschaert fight. Getting his ass kicked, somehow ends up on the ground, wins the fight. That's a Gerald Meerschaert fight, and that's what we had here. This went a little longer, right? We got our way into the second round. This didn't happen all in the first round, but Gerald Meerschaert got the shit kicked out of him. Another situation where a different referee might have stopped it. He was on the ground. He got dropped. He was getting pummeled, just absolutely getting the shit kicked out of him. Edmen Shahbazyan looked good. Gerald Meerschaert even had an opportunity on the ground. When after he got dropped, he was working some stuff, and it wasn't working. Edmen had no concerns whatsoever. It was not working. But then ultimately, second round comes, and that beautiful double, that beautiful takedown we saw from Gerald Meerschaert in his last fight showed back up. He got the takedown. Soon as it hit the ground, as soon as Gerald was on top, he locked that arm up, got the head and arm, choked him out, end of story, done. I mean, it's crazy. It is crazy. So credit to Gerald Meerschaert for taking the beating that he took. The beating he took was insane. And credit to him for having his wits about him and being able to finish these fights after getting hit that many times and almost being put unconscious. And the second thing, Gerald Meerschaert has 2 wins this week. This was the second. The first win he had was at the press conference. If you guys didn't know, Brendan Allen attacked Marvin Vettori in a hotel lobby at what was it, 2 weeks ago? Something like that. Literally attacked Marvin Vettori. It's on film. Brendan Allen just rushing forward and throwing a punch. That's straight up illegal everywhere else in this world. And they asked Gerald Meerschaert about it. They said, how do you what do you think about that? He's like, wow, what fight are you talking about? They're like, when Brendan Allen hit Marvin Vettori, he's like, what do you mean? When? And they're like, oh, 2 weeks ago. He's like, 2 weeks ago? Oh, that must be somebody who looked like Brendan Allen. Brendan was at my house 2 weeks ago. We were playing video games. So that couldn't have been him. Awesome, dude. He's not gonna catch him snitching. Awesome, dude. Then we had the second biggest favorite on the card. The biggest favorite was Cong Wang. This is the second biggest favorite. And he made it look good. He made it look easy. He won this fight the way he was supposed to. He beat the shit out of Neil Magny. And I know this screwed a lot of people too. A lot of people love the over 1.5 here. And listen, on paper, I liked it. I wasn't going to bet it. I'm never going to bet the over on a fight like this. I did think that it probably would go over, but I wasn't going to risk my money. And that, we talked about it last week. There's a huge difference between picks and bets. A huge difference between picks and bets. I picked Gerald Meerschaert. I did not bet on him. That was a missed opportunity. In this fight, I picked it to go over, but I didn't bet on that. And thank God, because Michael Morales smoked Neil Magny. And it was a little like, oh man, are we going to get some veteran, savvy, sneaky win here when Neil Magny just instantly shot a decision and he's holding Michael Morales against the cage and hanging out to the waist? And let's not forget, Michael Morales was a national wrestling champion in Ecuador, so he's defending the takedown, no problem. Very vertical, defending, working the hips. The base that he's establishing is fantastic. Stands up, does a spinning back elbow, rocks Magny, pounces on top, and just rains down until the ref stops it. Michael Morales looked fantastic. The most impressive thing here was not that he finished a 40-year-old man. That wasn't the most impressive thing. The most impressive thing here was how composed he was. And he was never in real trouble, right? We're talking about 2 minutes into a fight, somebody's holding onto his waist. Wasn't even a real takedown yet. And Michael just stayed composed, worked the hands, separated the hands from the body, did everything he was supposed to do and did it in a calm and orderly, how you want children to evacuate a school on a fire drill. Single file line, calm, no screaming, stay in line, nice and easy. And that's what Michael Morales did. He stayed in line, nice and easy, calm, no screaming, no panicking, worked the hands, worked his way up, bang, attacked, got it done. Michael Morales, 17-0. 17-0. And he's just quietly doing this. He's at 170, and I get 170's got a couple of killers in it. Everybody's talking about Shavkat. Michael Morales' win streak is just as impressive. He doesn't have as many finishes. Shavkat's literally all finishes. He doesn't have as many finishes, but this is just a sneaky, impressive win streak for a guy nobody's talking about. And I think this officially gets him a ranking. Was Neil Magny ranked 10? So I think he officially gets a ranking here, but just quiet, behind the scenes, racking up wins. And I think a lot of it had to do because they're decision wins. And now he finished Neil Magny. I don't know how much longer he can hide, and we're about to find out how good he actually is because he's going to get some tricky matchups coming up. Then we had the first of 2 Ultimate Fighter finales, and this went exactly how Jacob and I thought it would go. Mairon Santos just smoked Kaan Ofli. And Kaan Ofli is tough. He's gritty. He's a guy that you can count on to fight, right? He's not soft. He will move forward and he will fight. And he did move forward. And he did bring the fight. He tried to work in takedowns. And Mairon took his time, defended the takedowns. Eventually, when he let his hands go, he got it done in the second round. And Mairon's a guy that I mentioned in the prediction video. He reminds me of a Carlos Prates. He's got that same, first of all, he's freaking huge for this weight class. Huge. The fact that this dude's 145 pounds is crazy. He's a tremendous guy. He's got speed, power, and accuracy. Very, very accurate strikes. He's not insanely high volume. He will base out, nice power in his hips, control there, bang, bang. Nice and accurate, super fast, right to the point, gets it done. He looks fan-freaking-tastic. And again, I am curious to see what they do for him next, what he looks like in his next fight, who they give him. Because he is technically an Ultimate Fighter winner. That doesn't mean anything anymore. Years ago, that really meant something. Like, whoa. Now it's just like, all right, you're locked into this bullshit contract. It's basically an American Idol contract. It's long as hell. It's not a ton of money. So that sucks. But the reality is, he looked fantastic. He'll fight out this contract and all likelihood work out a good next one because he's exciting to watch. He's making things happen. Like, Mairon Santos is freaking good. Very, very good. This was Jacob's biggest bet of the night on Mairon. Then we had the second Ultimate Fighter winner. Listen, Ryan Loder is not as boring as I thought he was going to be. He started that way. I was pretty harsh on this dude. All-American wrestler, a man after my own heart, right? I've wrestled my whole life. Good for him for being a D1 All-American. That is not an easy thing to do. But he fights like a wrestler. And we're not watching NCAAs. We're watching fights. I want to see you fight. I don't want to see a wrestling match. I will watch wrestling when I want to see a wrestling match. I went as far as to say this is why I don't watch The Ultimate Fighter anymore. The no fans, the no commentary, just listening to feet squeak around in that little ass cage in that house. They just are not fun fights to watch. And Ryan Loder is like, when I had to watch his fights in The Ultimate Fighter, to do the tape study, to break this down, to give you the prediction where I said he was going to win, I was like, this shit sucks, dude. Watching this guy fight sucks. And it does, except this fight, he ended up with a finish. But what did he do? Instantly shot a takedown. Instantly shot a takedown. He was very aggressive in the submission attempts. In fact, early in the round, in the first round, he gets the takedown. He's working a submission. Robert Valentin's able to work his way out. He ends up taking Ryan Loder's back. Now he's the one threatening. So Ryan, the one time that he left his wet blanket comfort zone and attempted a submission, ends up getting swept, and he's now defending a rear naked choke for the whole round and probably lost that first round. But the second round, back to the well. Let me shoot a takedown. Let me work. And he ultimately made it happen. So Ryan Loder, listen, he was able to finish this fight. He wasn't as boring as he has been in the past, so good for him. He is also the Ultimate Fighter winner, and I am very curious to see what this even means. Because he is at 185 pounds, and honestly, that division doesn't have a ton of killer wrestlers who actually wrestle. Right? There's a lot of people who are good at wrestling in that weight class, but they're not actually wrestling. Kyle Borralho shot one takedown in the fifth round, and it was like a half-ass attempt. You got somebody like Ryan Loder, who you're 1,000% sure will absolutely shoot takedowns. There's not a lot of them at 185 pounds. So he actually could show up and win some fights he shouldn't be winning because he's going to be wrestling more often. And there are some guys, obviously, that wrestle, but not as committed to it as Ryan is. And then we had the co-main event of the evening. Tabitha Ricci was Jacob's underdog lock of the week. She was a full-blown underdog for about 5-6 days. Then the money started to come in. She flipped to a favorite and ended up closing as a slight favorite. Nothing dramatic, but she did end up closing as a slight favorite. When she was a dog, Jacob picked her as his underdog lock of the week. I picked Angela Hill when I did the breakdown here, so I was wrong when it came to the decision. And ultimately, I think the decision was correct. I see a lot of people online. Nobody agrees with judges. It's crazy. And nobody agrees with each other because there was a bunch of fights earlier in this card that I did not agree with. And now we have this one. I do agree with the outcome here. And I saw a whole bunch of people on Twitter talking about, you're not going to convince me that Angela Hill didn't win that fight. Tabitha Ricci lost. Angela Hill won. And I don't know how. I don't know how. In my mind, Tabitha Ricci was just moving forward with nonstop pressure. Just nonstop moving forward. She basically never backed up. There was a couple of takedowns in the fight, and they were all on the Tabitha Ricci side. And yes, she had some failed takedown attempts, but what happens when she failed? She just came right back up, kept moving forward, kept bombing away. Tabitha Ricci looks more and more comfortable on her feet. Her cardio was insane. The forward pressure was insane. And Angela Hill had some success. Right? She's one of the most experienced women in this division. I think she either has the most significant strikes landed ever at this weight class, or she's about to. So this is a woman with worlds of experience. And Tabitha Ricci just moved forward, marched forward. So of course, Angela's going to have some success, but I don't think Angela Hill won this fight. I'm curious if you think she won how, because she was backing up the whole time. So if you think she won, then you also need to think that Viacheslav won. You also need to think that Jacqueline Cavalcanti won. All three of them were backing up the whole fight. And I think Tabitha Ricci the pressure was good. And even when Angela would fire back, it wasn't great. She would just land, right? When we broke down the Viacheslav fight earlier, when he was firing back, it was like accurate, precise, heavy, stepping off, in combinations. That's not what we got from Angela. She would just throw back a little bit. So here's some critiques. First of all, I think Tabitha Ricci won. I genuinely agree. I think a unanimous decision was correct. And all a unanimous decision means is everybody agrees. That's all that it means. I still have some criticisms here. Because Tabitha Ricci, yeah, you're in phenomenal shape. And you can set a pace and move forward. But I'm still not seeing the wild skill improvement that I thought we would see. We're not getting all the takedowns. Like, yes, she shot a few. She got a few. But the reality is, like, look at the veins. Look at the veins on her shoulder right there. The shape that she is in, both cardiovascularly and just muscular. She is strong as shit. She is fast as shit. And she has cardio to push a pace. How are you not getting more takedowns? She should be able to get every takedown she has ever wanted. That pace, the strength, the speed, she should be getting far more takedowns. So the takedowns are not improving. I'm glad that she has plenty of cardio. There's nothing worse than a fighter who loses because they gas. But she also needs to clean up the striking defense. The offense looked much, much better. Moving forward, lightning fast. She's got to clean up the defense. There was no defense. She would just get hit. But because she kept moving forward, she would just get hit and move past it. But ultimately, Tabitha Ricci, I believe, won this fight. Angela Hill, she can hang her hat high. I mean, she kept up with that pace. She didn't fold. She didn't break. She kept up with that pace from Tabitha Ricci, and she looked good. So good for Angela. Great for Tabitha. Let me know what you guys think. I know already I'm positive a bunch of you are going to say you think Angela Hill win, but I'm curious how many people think Angela Hill won. If it was like everybody thinks it was a bad decision, or if it's just a vocal minority that think that. And then we had the main event of the evening. Ultimately, Caio Borralho got it done. He almost won by finish with like a minute left. He had a phenomenal head and arm. The pressure was there. Jared Cannonier's face is like swelling up. It actually looked like he was about to be out. A few times, Dan Miragliotta, the referee, had to check his arm because we all were like, oh, he might be unconscious. Caio Borralho looked good and okay at the same time. A couple of things. One, Jared Cannonier is 40 years old. He looks incredible for 40, both physically and skill-wise. He was moving forward. His cardio was fine, but you can see that chin is going. The chin is like one of the first thing that goes with age, and that chin is going. Caio Borralho, who is not known for his striking, dropped Jared Cannonier in multiple rounds. I think he dropped him in the third, and he dropped him in the fifth. He dropped him in multiple rounds. Caio Borralho is not a striker. Caio Borralho looked good, though. His striking looked good. He was moving forward. He was landing with a nice stiff jab, and he was very calculated. He knew exactly what he was doing. The most impressive thing with Caio's striking was the defense. And this picture doesn't depict that because his eye is lit the F up. But he was rolling nicely. This hand would always come back up, and he would roll with it, and he would roll with it. And the strikes would come off, and, you know, even if it came through a little bit, it came through enough to create that cut, but it didn't come through enough to really put him in any danger. There was a moment, I believe it was in the second round, where Kyle was cracked. He was backing up, and it looked like he was wobbled. Even the announcers didn't know what was going on. But they showed it 3-4 times, and every time they showed it, he was definitely doing some odd movements, but it looked like he was wiping the bottom of his feet. Like he literally was doing odd movements, but you watched him like wipe his foot like that. It wasn't just like stepping off balance. He like stepped and drag on both. And I could be wrong, but obviously it didn't end up mattering because he was like that for maybe 5 seconds and then totally back on track. But a couple of things that I loved from Kyle that we didn't see enough of. The leg kicks. Early in that first round, he blasted Jared Cannonier's legs twice. First time he kicked it, Jared Cannonier literally sat down. It kicked him so hard, he went whoop, boom, fell on his butt, popped back up. Second time he kicked him, boom, boom, fell on his butt, came back up. And then he just stopped throwing the kick. He stopped throwing that kick. There was like sporadic leg kicks throughout the fight, but for somebody as intelligent and high IQ as Caio Borralho, he landed 2 leg kicks. Both of them dropped his opponent. Nothing was met with adversity, meaning he didn't throw the leg kick and then eat a straight right. He threw the leg kick, dude dropped. A couple minutes later, threw a leg kick, dude dropped. Why did we not get 100 more leg kicks? Why were there not 100 leg kicks after that? Made no sense. And the other thing that didn't make sense was no wrestling whatsoever. There was a half-ass attempt in the 5th round. I don't even know what that was about. That made no sense. It was a half-ass attempt in the 5th round. I don't know if there's 2 schools of thought here. If you've been watching these videos last couple weeks, you've been heard me ranting and raving about the fact that the UFC is literally telling people not to wrestle. This has been confirmed by the fighters themselves. Muhammad Mokaev said they told me not to wrestle or they would cut me. Cara Williams had people coming from his camp saying they told him not to wrestle. Chelsea Chandler had people coming from her camp saying they told her not to wrestle. And so I don't know. Maybe they told Caio Borralho, don't wrestle. Be exciting. Don't be boring. But I actually don't think that's what it is in this fight. I don't think that's what this was. I think Caio Borralho's team is so good, and their strikers are so good. Mauricio Ruffi, Carlos Prates. Like the strikers in that gym are so good, and Caio's training with them day in and day out. The fight nerds are getting the recognition that like gyms would kill for. I think Caio Borralho, when he said, I want to knock this guy out, was 100% sincere. He didn't even fake wrestling. Didn't even do the good old Michael Chandler dip, touch the knee, and come with it. Didn't even attempt anything. Just straight boxing. Defense looked good. Offense looked very good. Obviously, he got touched up. This was a 25-minute fight. He got touched up, and, there's a big cut there. But at no point was Caio in a ton of danger. What the announcers said, and I was watching Jacob's live stream, what he said as well, is whoever's moving forward is winning this fight. And as Caio would move forward, he would land. And then Jared Cannonier would come rushing in with giant power, bombing away, and he would land. So it was a good back and forth fight. I am glad that the 5th round went the way. First of all, Caio was in the safety parlay, so needed that. But I'm glad that it was definitive. I'm glad we didn't get some weird close round and then another weird decision that we're going to debate and people can. I don't think you can debate that Caio won. I mean, he won this fight. In 2 separate rounds, he had Jared Cannonier in a lot of trouble. Straight up trouble with his hands. He dropped him a few times with the leg kicks. Like Caio Borralho won this fight. He definitely gave up some rounds. He went 25 minutes for the first time ever. He was in his first ever main event. He went from ranked 15 in the world to ranked 5th in the world. Fought a guy that has fought every single person. A guy who beat the greatest middleweight of all time. This was a huge win for Caio Borralho. A huge win for him. He got it done. He didn't even need to go to the tried and true grappling and wrestling. He ended up on the ground, but that's because he dropped Jared Cannonier and almost had him finished. Frankly, a different referee would have called that fight. In that 5th round, the way Caio Borralho dropped Jared Cannonier, he was done. That dude he fell unconscious. He was done. It's crazy he survived. Credit to Jared Cannonier. Dude's 40 years old, still looks good. I mean, Caio Borralho is on a 6-year unbeaten streak? It's insane what Caio Borralho is doing. So Jared Cannonier losing to him might end up being like, I lost to the eventual champion. I've still got it. We'll find out about all these things, but let me know what you guys thought about this card. I thought it was a pretty straightforward card. Literally, the main event had my heart pumping. It was a close fight. That was an excellent fight. The rest of the fights were just okay or as expected. Obviously, some finishes that we didn't see coming, like Michael Morales, but all the people who won, I thought would win. Certainly, if I was on the other side of a pick, I understood, like, yeah, that makes sense. That fight went as I thought it could go. Ultimately, the bets absolutely slapped. These were the bets for UFC Vegas 96. Go back to my recap video for UFC 305. We cleaned up that card too. Go back to the one. I mean, there's a trend here. Week in and week out, I film these videos. Week in and week out, I show you the bets. And we dominate. It is insane what we're doing. And it's insane that it's only freaking $10 a month to look at all the bets that we have, all the picks, the artificial intelligence, all the tools. WeWantPicks.com, click become a member at the top. It's $10 for an entire month. And UFC Noche, UFC 306 is included in that month, as well as a couple of other fight nights. You're going to get tools like the data analyzer. Some people love doing their own research, and more power to you. We have provided tools for you to do that research. The data analyzer has interactive data. It has charting. You can stack filters. You can export that, and you can even just watch the fights. Click on any of these dots on the graph. It will open up the fight in a new window, and you could watch the actual fight with your own eyes. We have a tool called the Prop Hunter. It's a curated set of data specifically to help you find prop bets, significant strike lines, takedowns, round line leans. We have the line movement tracker. This is going to show you the opening odds, the current odds, the win probability, and the line movement for every fighter on every card. We have a DraftKings optimizer preloaded with the best DraftKings projections on planet Earth. And then we have more than just myself and Jakey giving you our picks and bets. We have Artem giving you his UFC picks and bets, as well as his picks, bets, and breakdowns for PFL, LFA, Contender Series, and we have an artificial intelligence. It is insane what is included for $10. WeWantPicks.com. Click become a member. At this point, there's absolutely no reason to not sign up. It's crazy. Thank you guys so much for the watch. Genuinely, our growth these last couple of months has been beyond anything I expected. Thank you all very, very much.